Hi everyone, we hope you're having a great day. Now that you've identified a mentor and started that relationship, what's next? Keep watching for more.
One of the things that I have always, I don't know, maybe not been like self-conscious about, but I think even just in our relationship together, which I've never asked you, but like, I think it's like the frequency of the communication. So like, okay, you've done all this, you've like gone on LinkedIn, you've like reached out to your realtor or whoever, and now you have a mentor. And then I think for me, it was like, how often is appropriate to reach out to this person? Like, I think I always had this sense that I was like bothering you, but not like because of the way that you would respond to me. But I think before I would like write up a text, I'd be like, oh my gosh, she's probably super busy. She has like a million things to do. There's other people she's mentoring. Like, I don't want to be like one more thing on her to-do list. And so, but I was curious from like your perspective, like, well, I might be so self-conscious about that or like wrapped up. Maybe I don't need to worry about it, or maybe I do. I don't really know. And I just thought, well, hey, we're putting things out there. I wonder if people do that too.
Well, I think that's a good question. I mean, I'll answer about our relationship first off, that I've always welcomed when you reached out. It makes me happy. And you know, the fact that you went to social work school in part because of things that we discussed, you know, I feel like, wow, what a contribution. Like, I brought another amazing social worker into the world, you know, that's really neat. So for me, like, and for some of the mentors that I've worked with, they've openly said like, they get as much out of it as the mentee does. And I absolutely feel that way. I think that, you know, so reach out anytime you want, because I never feel like it's too much or anything like that. And I'm, you know, always here to support and discuss, bounce ideas off of each other and things like that. Any way that I can help you, I want to. And I think part of having a mentor-mentee relationship is that it does have to be a give and take, because I feel the same about you. Like, I feel I can reach out to you to bounce ideas off of. And, you know, I asked you for a recommendation. You wrote me a recommendation on LinkedIn, you know, so so I absolutely think, you know, you've got to be brave. This is a time where we just have to be brave. I think got to kind of get a grip on any sort of neuroses or self-conscious feelings that we all have and try to put them to the side, because you can't be quiet right now. There's just too many people looking for jobs and too few jobs that if we allow our fears to stand in the way, then we'll get stuck. You know, so and that's not easy to do. You know, that's not easy to do, but at least you can start by recognizing that, you know, you feel a little self-conscious around this. And I always go the route of asking the person too. So, you know, you and I have become friends, so it's a little bit different. If you have a mentor that's truly a mentor and that it's not necessarily like more like a social friendship or friendship as well, I think that you say, you know, I'd really love to talk with you once a month. So I have two mentors that I'm working with right now. One is like truly like a mentor coach. She's like really helping me on a weekly basis. We have an assigned time every week that we meet on Zoom, and I have specific homework to get done for her. So that's like a slightly unusual relationship, and obviously that's happening because of the current context, but it's really helpful. So, and it's also really clear what we're going to do. So I'm not going to write her a million times during the week, even though she said I can. I feel like that's not respectful, but I'm going to hold some of my questions until I meet with her at our weekly meeting, and get them answered then, or discuss things then. I have another mentor that I'm working with where I don't really need to speak with him quite as much. You know, he's more like big picture discussion items. And so we've had kind of our initial conversation, and then I said, you know, let me do some more research about where I want to go with my career, and I'll get back to you in a couple of weeks. So I sort of set it up like that, and I asked it, does that feel okay to you? So I think when you're talking about frequency, it's best to be open about it and ask the person, you know, how often they're comfortable talking, and try to set up you know, an arrangement. But with that being said, the caveat is that you already established that you're in a mentor-mentee relationship, whether you've actually said it or you're further along, you know, in it's obvious.
Yeah.
You definitely, you know, once again, you don't want to go up to someone and first, second conversation be saying, can you be my mentor and can we meet once a week?
Right. So you kind of have to like intuitively feel that or have that established somehow in your communication.
Yeah, I think it takes some time. And I think most of us have a, a sense of when a relationship has gotten a little deeper, or there might be an openness to establishing something more formal. But you also can have mentors that are like 1 or 2 time conversations. Mm-hmm. What you said that you've had some other mentors. How have you established those relationships, and what have they been like?
So it's really just like dependent on the context, and kind of to your point, like I've worked with like professional affiliations. So say like the Association of Oncology Social Workers, and they had an opportunity for students to be linked with a mentor that had, similar, that was working in an area that was like of similar interest to the students. So like there was a whole kind of form you filled out, and then it was very like methodical as to how you were placed with a mentor. So for that type of relationship, we were able to kind of communicate, like we knew going in that we were matched, and then we decided what felt comfortable as far as how often to talk. And it really kind of depended on the circumstance. So like for us at first, we had decided that once every 2 weeks to start, and just talking for 30 minutes was the way to go. Mm-hmm. Like as I got like further down the path in sort of the things that like I needed from that person, we actually wound up just meeting once a month for an hour, because by that time I had built up that confidence in that particular area to where I didn't feel like I needed as much help on a consistent basis. But during that month time, like I might have emailed her like once or twice just for small things. And thankfully, like I was able to, even though I had never met her in person, establish, I guess, a dialogue ahead of time, just saying like full transparency. Like I know that this is kind of how we've established our relationship, and these are the boundaries. But like if something changes, or like if I wind up like overstepping or reaching out to you too often, like please let me know. And she was very good about it. She's like, well, if I don't respond in like 3 to 5 days, or sometimes things get busy, just email me again. So
write me again. Yeah.
Like her way of saying like, I do have other things going on, but I also care about you. So just like send me a reminder email.
Yeah, I love that. I like when people say that, because then you also feel empowered to not just leave it. I think when you've asked someone for something on an email or a text and they haven't given a response, and they haven't made that commitment to you, then you're like, oh, should I respond? Or am I being a pest? Am I going to look to, and here's the thing is like, again, because everybody is vying for jobs right now, just the whole world, or at least
a lot.
Right? I mean, that's real. Yeah. You've got to be persistent. And so, so I think if you can establish it early on, that if I don't hear back from you after such and such amount of time, is it okay if I reach out again? That makes great sense. And I think so much of it is how you do it. So I reached out to somebody on LinkedIn who works in the tech field, but she's a social worker, and that really interests me. And I don't even know how you would start that. So I just really wanted to know. So I wrote her on LinkedIn, and I didn't hear back right away. And so I wrote her again, and she said, and usually people are so apologetic. She said, I'm so busy, I'm so sorry, but I really do want to talk to you. And so I just took that for what it was. I didn't personalize it, oh, she doesn't want to, talk to me. Oh, it's something about me. No, she was just too busy. And if I hadn't written her back again, I wouldn't have gotten the meeting with her. Now, I waited like 5 days. So you don't want to be like bugging people like in 2 hours. Haven't heard from you. Like, can we connect? You have to be reasonable about understanding people's time constraints.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I definitely think so. And I think, and I don't know how you felt about this, but I think one thing that I have felt without any feedback, but just like my own personal feelings, is like, I have found that connecting with other people has been on the foundation of like gratitude. Like I am so thankful for those like inspirational relationships, whether it lasted for just like that single conversation or whether it was like over a long period of time. And when I can remember and when I'm like in the moment to where I do have a few extra minutes, like I feel like my thing is sending thank you cards or thank you emails or thank you texts.
That's great.
And it's interesting because I mean, if anything, I feel really good about doing it and just knowing that I acknowledge that other person for their time, but not in, again, I feel like it's just like not in one of those like robotic ways of like, oh, you know, we had this interview together or this like informational one-on-one. And then like 30 minutes later, I send out like an email, like, thank you so much for your time. Can't wait to talk again. But like, it's like a handwritten note usually. And if I don't know the person really well, I'll ask their secretary if there's like an office that I can send a note to. And I will say, I don't do it every time, but it's like truly when it comes from the heart and I mean it.
Well, you sent me one of those thank you notes and I kept it. I still have it. And it meant a lot to me. And even on days when work was tough, I would read it because everybody needs that to know that they've affected change in someone's life and made things better for them. So I think the writing of an actual handwritten thank you note is makes you stand out. You know, that's what so much of this networking has to be, right? Is trying to stand out and show why they should talk to you, why they should hire you. And I think that is a beautiful idea. And you know, and whether, you know, you're sending it a snail mail or you're sending an email, you can even craft an email that's really personal too. And I really agree with you that, you know, I've had people talk with me and they've sent me thank you emails while they're still on the phone with me.
Oh my God.
So I think that, you know, we've got to use a little common sense here that how's that going to feel? Like, is the person going to feel like you were really engaged with them? Or if, you know, sending one 30 minutes later, that's like a form thank you. You know, take some notes in your conversation, write down some really impactful things that you discussed and reiterate that in the handwritten note or in the email or, I don't know, text, maybe not.
Yeah.
Text probably isn't enough depending on the relationship.
Yeah, I think maybe as we go along, because I feel like now, like before I probably would have never texted you unless it was like an emergency and I knew that maybe you were like out of the office or like traveling. And so it was just like faster response time to text you, like at least at the beginning or even the middle. But I feel like now 5 years later, we've like passed that threshold and like texting is kind of like the preferred method. But yeah, I think it would be important to sort of make sure that you haven't crossed a line there either because, you know.
Yeah. But I love the idea of gratitude and that comes through. So if you are present, as you talked about before, and gracious, that is very clear to the other person that you're not thinking of your next person you're going to talk to or how you can parlay this into a job or whatever. Some of the things that I've done to do that, because it can be very hard to be in the moment, especially now with so much going on in our country and just a lot of stressors, is I do a little bit of meditation and deep breathing before, in the beginning of the day, but ideally before each call that I have. And that, you know, I think that that's something that we can talk about as well moving forward. You know, you have such a strong background in healthy living and healthy being, and I'm newer to it, but really trying to incorporate different avenues of health in my life. And that will shine through when you're doing all of this networking. Because if you are sitting there at your desk chair, and I have done this even recently, not moving for 5 hours, typing away on LinkedIn and taking your video chats, that takes a toll on you, and that will come out in the relationships that you're trying to form. Yeah. And of course with your family too.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I have to like snap myself back sometimes because I'll like notice myself wandering. And I think even sometimes too, like when we're engaged in a conversation, whether it's like friends or, you know, we're talking mentor or mentee here, but like I will feel so strongly about something that you might have just said, but then you're continuing on your part of the conversation for, you know, say 2 or 3 minutes more. And I have totally just like forgotten about the last stuff that you were saying because I was so focused on that question, but you might have already like talked about that, you know, but I think
interesting.
But I was just like, oh my gosh, like I really want to ask about this. And then my brain sort of like just doesn't flow with the rest of the conversation. So I think for me, kind of how you said, like practicing mindfulness and also allowing for the conversation to just flow and to just go where it goes and not trying to like come up with like a whole list of questions that I want to ask. And like, as soon as I get done with one, it's like, bam, the other. Cause I know that sometimes too, like being the mentee and not wanting the mentor to feel like I've been wasting their time. Like I do like to come with a couple of questions prepared, but what I have learned over time is that I might only get one out of like the 5 questions out, and that it's not a race to like have the mentor like answer as many questions as possible, but rather to like go with the flow and where the conversation is going, because like you never know where it's going to go and what you're going to learn.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You bring up some really interesting points. I mean, I think that both can be used. So if you're reaching out to a professor that already knows you and you have a decent relationship with them already, then I think it's fine to come with some specific questions. And how I like to do it is I say at the beginning, is it okay? I've written down some questions. Is it okay if I share those with you? And then, it'll probably go in different directions, but you can always bring it back, you know, to the questions. I think that when you're having a conversation with somebody who you're hoping would be your mentor or is trying to guide you, you know, in a career direction, and it is more like an organic, natural progression, I think that it can stunt the conversation if you're, you know, constantly like, well, let me check, did I, you know, get all my questions. One thing that I do a lot though is I'll say to people at the beginning, just to let you know, I'm looking down, especially when you're using video chat, like I'm looking down because I'm taking notes. So like if you're talking with me and we kind of go off in a different tangent, but there was something that I wanted to come back to, I'll just jot that down. And then maybe at the end, I'll say, you know, you brought up something before and I really thought that was great. I'd like to circle back on that.
Yeah, I think that's really, really excellent. And just, again, being totally transparent by the get-go, because I can't tell you how many times, like, I might be in a conversation with someone and they look down at their phone and I'm like, they don't care. Like,
yeah.
And I might have thought like, oh my gosh, Leah's just like looking down at her phone and like, she probably got some text by somebody, you know, from somebody else. And so I think that that is excellent. Like, and just not assuming that they know you're taking notes.
Right. Yeah. Just put it out there. And I think that comes from being a therapist. And so if, you know, I don't like to take notes when I'm working with clients in therapy, but when I do, I always ask for permission first and let them know why I'm taking them, what I'm going to do with it. And so I think that you should do the same thing with a mentor, with any sort of relationship like that. I think it is really important, and this is kind of nitty gritty, but to have a pen and paper to take the notes, because I think you're absolutely right that even if you preface it by saying, I'm not texting, I'm just reading, I'm taking notes on my phone. I think when there's something that goes on when somebody sees that you're looking at your phone while they're talking, they just don't feel connected to you and heard. So, you know, get a pen and a paper and write some notes.
Well, yeah. And then you may likely get distracted by a text or an email that came through if you get, you know, the, alerts or something, right? And so then it's like another way of distracting you from the conversation. But I think that this has been great. I don't know if, you know, in closing, there's anything else that you thought would be relevant in the whole like component or the aspect of like mentor mentee that we might not have covered.
I mean, I think we hit on a lot of things, and this is an ongoing discussion about relationship building. And, you know, a lot of the things that we're talking about are skills that can be used not just in the professional realm, but also personal. So that's kind of cool that, you know, you can use them in both. So why not? But, you know, I would just put it out there too, for anybody that is watching this video, you know, let us know what you do to find a mentor and what successes you've had or what struggles you've faced. And we can start, you know, talking about that. But I think you and I just want to keep the conversation going about job hunting, networking, connecting, what's going to give you that wonderful, rewarding, purposeful feeling in your career.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So, okay, help me wrap this up. So, a couple of the main like themes from this is to have the mentor-mentee relationship be organic and authentic.
Yeah, not to be afraid.
Not to be afraid, to be brave.
Right, be brave, yeah.
To be kind of go with the flow wherever conversations may go. To be open to wherever that might be. To be curious.
Yes.
So going in with like the organicness, but just ask people about themselves and be brave while doing it, because that may be uncomfortable for some people. To communicate, so like talking about frequency, being okay and comfortable in those conversations and asking your mentor, hey, can I reach out to you once a month or once a week or whatever, and then figuring out if you might need to adjust that as things progress.
Right.
And being kind to yourself. So like, you know, how you mentioned too, like you might not hear anything back, but not to immediately get discouraged.
Right. It's not about you.
Yeah, it's not about you. Recognize, like letting go of the ego a little bit, and like,
right.
And even if that person never responds, not to take it personally, like just keep plugging along.
Yeah. And also, I'll just add in really quickly, if you're reaching out and not hearing anything, maybe it is about you. And then maybe you need to talk to someone that you trust to get some input about what you're sending out. And maybe there needs to be some tweaks there.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's true. And I mean, I feel like it probably depends on who you're reaching out to. Like if I'm reaching out to like Beyonce, like right now at my level, I probably won't hear back because it probably, you know. So
hey, you never know.
You never know. Maybe I should try. But yeah, like being mindful of like who the recipient is, and maybe they have like a secretary or somebody that like goes through all their emails first, you know, like scans them, who knows. Or if it's like you're reaching out to them through I'm not gonna say like a business email, but like not a personal email. Like maybe it's, you know, so it might not get filtered the same way.
Right.
And then I feel like I'm missing something, but hopefully just by watching the video, people will be taking notes on a pen and paper.
Yeah, I think you got a lot of them.
That was it.
Be mindful.
Be mindful. Yeah. So like doing exercises before that might be helpful. And maybe we can allude to some of that, like in other videos, as to like what types of mindfulness are out there, and other research in just like self-presentation, makeup, wardrobe, but then also like the internal aspects too. So yeah, lots to chat about.
Yeah, I'm so glad to talk with you. This was really fun. I've learned a lot, and I hope you did. And maybe if anybody watches this, then we'll help them on their journey as well.
Yeah, even if there's one person, but actually even if there's not one person, like I got a lot out of it. So thank you so much. All right.
It's good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, this is Leah. Thanks for watching our video. Comment below and let us know what your experience has been with mentors. Can't wait to hear from you.